I didn't mean to notice it. That's the thing. It wasn't like some dramatic moment where everything slowed down and I suddenly realized, oh, he's into me. No. It was smaller than that. Quieter. The kind of thing you almost brush off, except it keeps happening. The first time, I genuinely thought I imagined it. Alec was sitting across from me at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone while I half listened to some podcast playing in the background. It was late, like past midnight, both of us pretending we weren't exhausted. I got up to grab water, and when I turned back, his eyes snapped down to his screen. Too fast. Like he'd been caught. I paused for a second, glass in hand, just standing there like an idiot. But he didn't look back up. Just kept scrolling, completely normal. So I told myself I was overthinking it. Wouldn't be the first time. Living with Alec for the past 6 months had already done weird things to my head. He was easy to be around. The kind of guy who didn't try too hard but somehow always pulled your attention anyway. Tall, calm, a little sarcastic. The type who didn't need to be loud to be noticed. And yeah, okay, I'd noticed him. But noticing your roommate doesn't mean anything. It's just proximity. Familiarity. Whatever. That's what I told myself. Until it kept happening. Little things. Like how sometimes I'd feel it before I even saw it, that weird awareness, like someone's looking at you. And when I'd glance up, there he'd be, eyes already flicking away like nothing happened. Or when we were watching something on the couch, and I'd laugh at a scene, turning slightly, and he'd already be looking at me instead of the screen. That one stuck with me. Because he didn't look away immediately that time. Just lingered. Half a second too long. It wasn't obvious. If anyone else saw it, they'd think nothing of it. But I felt it. That pause. That almost something hanging in the air before he finally leaned back like it didn't matter. I remember my chest feeling tight after that. Not in a bad way. Just different. I started paying attention after that. I couldn't help it. Once you notice something like that, it's like your brain refuses to let it go. Every glance, every small shift, it all starts adding up. And the worst part? I didn't hate it. If anything, I started wondering. Which was a problem. Because Alec wasn't like me. At least, I didn't think he was. He dated girls. Or had. I'd seen pictures, heard stories. Nothing recent, but still. There was no reason to assume anything else. Except. One night that, except, got a lot harder to ignore. We were both in the living room again, lights low, some random show playing that neither of us was really watching. I was stretched out on one side of the couch, half on my phone, half zoning out. Alec was quieter than usual. Not in a bad mood way. Just distracted. I noticed it when he didn't react to something I said. "Hey," I muttered, glancing over. "You even listening?" No answer. So I turned my head fully, and there it was again. He was looking at me. Not quickly looking away this time. Not subtle. Just staring. My breath caught for a second, and I swear something in my chest flipped in a way I wasn't prepared for. Because his expression. It wasn't casual. It wasn't friendly. It was focused. Like he was trying to figure something out. The second he realized I noticed, he blinked, leaned back, grabbed the remote like he'd been reaching for it the whole time. "Yeah," he said, clearing his throat. "Just tired." I didn't respond right away. Just watched him for a second. Because now I knew I wasn't imagining it. "You've been doing that a lot," I said before I could stop myself. That got his attention. "What?" "That," I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Zoning out. Staring at nothing." A beat. Then he huffed out a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "Didn't realize I was that obvious." He didn't ask what I meant. And I didn't push it. But something shifted after that. Because now it wasn't just me noticing him. It felt like he knew I noticed. And instead of stopping, it almost got worse. Not in a bad way. Just closer. like he didn't bother hiding it as much anymore. Or maybe I just stopped pretending not to see it. Either way, the tension started building in this quiet, steady way that made everything feel a little off. A little heavier. Like something was waiting to happen. And then there was that night. The one I keep replaying in my head, even now. Because that was the first time I caught him looking at me. And he didn't look away at all. It happened on a random Thursday. Nothing special about the day. No party, no drinking, no big emotional moment leading up to it. Just another night, same routine. Which somehow made it worse. Or more real. I'd gotten back late, dropped my bag by the door, and found Alec already on the couch, one arm stretched across the back like he'd been there for a while. The TV was on, low volume, something mindless playing in the background. "Thought you weren't coming back tonight," he said without looking at me. I shrugged, kicking off my shoes. Plans fell through. He nodded like that made sense. No follow-up questions. That was his thing. He never pushed. Just let things sit. I grabbed a drink, hovered in the kitchen for a second, then ended up sitting on the opposite end of the couch. Not too close. Not far either. Just normal. At least, that's what I told myself. We watched in silence for a bit. Or pretended to. Because I could feel it again. That awareness. That pull. I kept my eyes on the screen, but my focus wasn't there. It was on him. On whether he was looking again. On whether I'd catch it this time. It was stupid. And I still turned my head anyway. Slowly. Carefully. And yeah. He was already looking at me. But this time? He didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Didn't even pretend. He just held it. And something about that hit different. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It wasn't accidental. It was intentional. My chest tightened, and for a second, I forgot how to act normal. "What?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alec's expression didn't change much. Maybe that was the worst part. He always looked so composed, even when something clearly wasn't normal. "Nothing," he said. But he didn't look away. I let out a quiet breath, shifting slightly on the couch. "You've been doing that a lot." There it was again. That line. This time, I meant it differently. He tilted his head just a little. "Doing what?" "You know what." A pause. Longer than it should have been. And then, finally, he leaned back, dragging his gaze away like it actually took effort. "I don't," he said, but it sounded off. Not convincing. I watched him for a second, trying to figure out if I should drop it. I probably should have. Instead, I said, "You keep looking at me like you're trying to figure something out." That landed. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened just slightly. Barely noticeable, but I'd been paying attention. "And what if I am?" he asked. That wasn't what I expected. At all. I blinked, caught off guard. "Then, what are you trying to figure out?" He didn't answer right away. Just looked back at me. And again. Didn't look away. There was something different in his eyes now. Not hidden anymore. Not subtle. It made my stomach twist in a way I couldn't ignore. "I don't know yet," he said finally. Quiet. Honest. And somehow that made it worse. Because it didn't feel like a joke. Or deflection. It felt real. The kind of real that makes everything shift whether you're ready or not. I swallowed, suddenly way too aware of how close we actually were on that couch. "You're being weird," I muttered. Alec huffed a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah," he said. "I know." Neither of us moved. The TV kept playing, background noise that didn't matter anymore. And then he shifted. Just slightly closer. Not enough to be obvious. But enough that I noticed. Enough that I felt it. "Jackson," he said, my name quieter than usual. Something in the way he said it made my chest tighten again. "Yeah?" Another pause. Like he was deciding something. "Do you ever feel like—" He stopped, exhaled, shook his head. Never mind. No, I said quickly. What? He hesitated. And for the first time since I'd known him, Alec actually looked unsure. It threw me off more than anything else. Like things change, he said finally. Even if nothing actually happens. I frowned slightly. That's vague as hell. I know. But you mean us? I asked. There it was. Out in the open. Alec's eyes flicked back to mine. And this time, there was no pretending. Yeah, he said. My heart started beating faster than it should have. Because I knew what he meant. I just didn't know what to do about it. Things haven't changed, I said, even though part of me wasn't sure that was true anymore. Alec watched me carefully. Right, he said. But the way he said it, it sounded like he didn't believe me. And honestly, neither did I. Because sitting there, a little too close, with the weight of his attention still on me, it didn't feel the same anymore. It hadn't for a while. And I think we both knew it. Neither of us said anything after that. But when I finally stood up to head to my room, I could feel his eyes on me again. Stronger this time. Like he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. And for the first time, I didn't pretend not to notice. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. I tried to pretend they did. That was my first mistake. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, like my body just refused to let me sleep through it. My head was already busy, replaying everything from the night before, the way he looked at me, the way he said my name, the way either of us really denied anything. It stuck. All of it. I stayed in my room longer than I needed to, scrolling through my phone without actually reading anything. Just avoiding. Because I didn't know what version of Alec I was going to walk into. The normal one? Or the one from last night? When I finally stepped into the kitchen, he was already there. Of course he was. Leaning against the counter, coffee in hand, like nothing in the world had shifted. Morning, he said, casual. Too casual. Yeah, I muttered, grabbing a mug. Morning. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't the easy kind we used to have. This one felt aware. Like every movement mattered more than it should. I could feel him again. Not even looking yet, and I already knew. Still, I poured my coffee, took a sip, and forced myself to glance up. And yeah, he was watching me. No hesitation. No pretending. Just there. My grip tightened slightly around the mug. You're not even trying to hide it anymore? Alec didn't react right away. He just took another sip, calm as ever. Didn't think I needed to. That hit harder than it should have. Why not? He set his mug down slowly, eyes still on me. Because you already noticed. I let out a quiet breath, shaking my head like that somehow made sense of anything. That doesn't mean. It means you know. He cut in, not harsh, just direct. I looked at him, really looked this time. At the way he was standing, steady, like he'd already accepted something I was still trying to figure out. And what exactly do I know? I asked. Alec tilted his head slightly, studying me the same way he had been for days now. That I'm not just zoning out, he said. My chest tightened again. Okay, I said slowly. So then what is it? There it was. No dodging. No vague comments. Just the question sitting between us. For a second, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then, I look at you because I want to. Simple. Too simple. It knocked the air out of me more than anything complicated could have. Jackson, he added, quieter now, like he was choosing his words more carefully this time. I wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't mean something. That was the moment everything stopped feeling theoretical. Because now it meant something. And I had to decide what that meant for me. I set my mug down, suddenly not trusting my hands to stay steady. You've had months to not make it mean something, I said. Why now? Alec's jaw shifted slightly, like he'd expected that question. I didn't plan it, he said. It just kept happening. That's not really an answer. I know. A pause. Then, more honestly, I tried to ignore it at first. That caught me off guard. You. Yeah, he huffed lightly. You think I wanted to complicate this? I didn't respond. Because no, I didn't think that. But here we were. You're my roommate, he continued. You're easy to be around. I didn't want to mess that up. Then why are you? I asked. Alec looked at me for a long second. And this time, there was no hesitation at all. Because it's already messed up, he said quietly. That landed hard. Because he wasn't wrong. Not anymore. The air between us had been different for a while now. Charged in a way either of us could pretend not to feel. And what? I said slowly. You just decided to lean into it? A small shrug. Kind of. I let out a breath, running a hand through my hair. You make it sound simple. It's not. Good, I muttered. Because it doesn't feel simple. Does it feel wrong? He asked. That question caught me completely off guard. Not because of what it was, but because of how carefully he asked it. Like he actually needed to know. I opened my mouth to answer. And then stopped. Because the honest answer? It should have been yes. This whole situation, your roommate, the tension, the looks, it should feel wrong. Complicated. Messy. But standing there, with him looking at me like that, it didn't. And I hated how much I didn't hate that. No, I said finally. Alec's expression shifted, just slightly. Not relief exactly, but something close. Okay, he said. Just that. Like that was enough. And somehow, it was. The silence that followed felt different. Not tense. Not awkward. Just full. Like we'd crossed something we couldn't uncross. I leaned back against the counter, arms folding loosely as I watched him. So what now? I asked. Alec held my gaze. And for the first time since all of this started, there was something almost confident in the way he looked at me. No, he said. I stopped pretending I'm not looking. My stomach flipped. Because he wasn't joking. And the way he said it, it sounded like a warning. Or maybe a promise. I wasn't sure which one it was yet. But I had a feeling I was about to find out. After that, Alec didn't just look at me. He let me feel it. There's a difference. Before it had been subtle. Something I could ignore if I tried hard enough. Quick glances. Lingering moments that could be explained away. Now, there was no explaining it away. It started with small things. Like how he wouldn't break eye contact first anymore. I'd catch him looking, and instead of that quick shift away, he'd just stay there. Like he was waiting to see what I'd do. And the worst part? I started holding it too. At first, just out of stubbornness. Then, not for that reason anymore. A couple days passed like that. Nothing dramatic happening on the surface, but everything underneath felt different. He moved the same, talked the same, but there was this constant awareness between us now. Every room felt smaller when he was in it. Every silence felt louder. And then there was the couch again. Of course it was the couch. It was late, like usual. We'd both fallen back into that routine. Same spots, same low-volume TV, same excuse to be near each other without saying it out loud. But this time, I sat closer. I didn't even think about it. Just dropped down next to him instead of the opposite end. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat from his arm. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That was a lie. Alec noticed. I could tell from the way he shifted slightly, not away, just adjusting like he was making space without actually creating distance. You're not even pretending anymore either, he said after a minute. His voice was low, casual. But there was something underneath it. I glanced at him. Pretending what? That you don't notice. I exhaled quietly, leaning back into the couch. Didn't think I needed to. His lips twitched slightly at that. Guess not. Silence again. But not empty. Never empty anymore. I could feel his arm resting along the back of the couch, just behind me. Not touching, but close enough that if I leaned back even a little more. I didn't. But I thought about it. Way more than I should have. You ever gonna tell me what you figured out yet? I asked, keeping my eyes on the screen. Alec didn't answer right away. I could feel his gaze before I even turned. And when I did. Yeah. Same look. Focused. Intent. Yeah, he said. That made my stomach tighten. And? I pushed. He shifted slightly, turning his body more toward me. Closing the space just a little more. I like looking at you, he said. My breath hitched, just for a second. That's it. I tried to play it off. No, he said quietly. That's not it. The way he said it. It wasn't casual anymore. It wasn't teasing. It was something else entirely. I swallowed, suddenly very aware of how close we were sitting now. Then what is it? Alec's eyes dropped, just for a second. Not to the floor. Not to the TV. To my mouth. And then back up. That one small movement sent something sharp through my chest. I don't just look when you're not paying attention, he said. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Because I already knew where this was going. You noticed that, right? He added. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. Yeah. I look when you are paying attention too. The air shifted. Like something had finally been said that we couldn't take back. I felt it everywhere, tight in my chest, low in my stomach, that restless energy building up with nowhere to go. You're making this hard to ignore, I muttered. Alec's expression softened slightly. Good, he said. That hit different. Good? I repeated. Yeah, he said, steady. Because I don't want you to ignore it. My pulse picked up. Why? Because I think you feel it too. That landed right where it shouldn't have. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head a little. You're assuming a lot. Am I? I didn't answer. Because no. He wasn't. And he knew it. Alec leaned in just slightly, not enough to close the distance, but enough that I noticed. Enough that my body reacted before my brain could catch up. You haven't moved away, he said quietly. My chest rose and fell a little heavier. That doesn't mean anything. It kinda does. His voice was softer now. Closer. Everything about him felt closer. Jackson, he added, and again, just hearing my name like that did something to me I couldn't explain. Yeah? Another pause. But this one felt like the edge of something. If I was wrong, he said slowly, you'd have shut this down already. I didn't respond. Because I couldn't. Because he was right. And we both knew it. The space between us felt thinner than ever now. Like one small movement would erase it completely. I could feel his arm behind me. His breath steady. His eyes still on me, not wavering for even a second. And for the first time, I wasn't just aware of him looking at me. I wanted him to. That realization hit harder than anything else. Because it meant this wasn't just him anymore. It was me too. And once that clicked, there was no going back to how things were before. That realization didn't go away. It followed me. Everywhere. I noticed it the next morning, the second I woke up. That same restless feeling sitting in my chest, like something had already started and I was just catching up to it. And the worst part? I wasn't trying to stop it anymore. I walked into the kitchen, already knowing what I'd see. Alec. Coffee. That same calm posture like nothing had changed. Except everything had. Morning, he said, glancing up. And there it was again. That look. Not hidden. Not subtle. Just, on me. Yeah, I muttered, grabbing a mug, trying to act normal. Didn't work. Because I could feel it. Even with my back turned, I knew he was still watching. Tracking every small movement like it mattered. You're doing it again, I said, not even looking at him this time. Yeah, he replied. No denial. Nothing. I let out a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. You're not even trying to ease into this, huh? Did that already? He said. Didn't work. That pulled a small, involuntary smirk out of me. I turned, leaning back against the counter, and yeah, he was still looking. Exactly the same way. Feels like you skipped a few steps, I said. Which ones? Like? I don't know. I gestured vaguely. Not making it this obvious? Alec tilted his head slightly. Why? Because, I huffed. Normal people don't just. I stopped, exhaling. You know what I mean. I do, he said. And I don't really care about doing it the normal way. That shouldn't have hit as hard as it did. But it did. Because there was something about how direct he was being now, no hesitation, no backing off, that made it impossible for me to hide behind excuses anymore. You're making this complicated, I said. Alec shook his head slightly. No, he said. It was already complicated. I'm just not pretending it's not. I held his gaze for a second longer than I should have. Then looked away first. That was new. Before, he'd always been the one to break it. Now, it felt like I was the one losing that silent standoff. And I didn't like how much that affected me. The rest of the day was worse. Because now it wasn't just about noticing him looking. It was about anticipating it. Every time I walked into a room, I felt it before I saw it. Every time I said something, I could feel his attention locken like I was the only thing in the room. And I started reacting. Small things at first. Like pausing mid-sentence because I could feel him watching. Or glancing over without thinking, almost expecting to catch him. And every time, I did. By that night, the tension had built into something I couldn't ignore anymore. We were back in the living room. Again. Same setup. Different energy. I sat down, closer than usual this time. Not even pretending. Alec noticed immediately. Of course he did. You're really not subtle anymore, he said. Neither are you, I shot back. Yeah, he nodded. But I stopped trying. I exhaled, leaning back, my shoulder just barely brushing the couch near his arm. Not touching. But close. Too close. Why does it feel like you're waiting for something? I asked. Alec didn't answer right away. And when I looked at him, he was already looking back. Closer now. More focused than ever. I am, he said. My stomach tightened. For what? For you to stop acting like you don't want this. That hit hard. Way too direct. I never said I did, I replied, but my voice wasn't as steady as I wanted it to be. You didn't have to. Alec shifted slightly. Closer. This time, our arms actually brushed. Barely. But it was enough. A spark of something sharp and immediate ran through me, and I sucked in a quiet breath before I could stop myself. He noticed that. Of course he did. See? He said quietly. I didn't pull away. That was the problem. I should have. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed there, hyper-aware of that small point of contact, like it had flipped some switch I couldn't turn off. You're reading into it, I muttered. Am I? Yes. Then move. My chest tightened. What? If I'm wrong, he said, voice low, steady. Move away. Simple. Clear. And impossible. Because I didn't. I stayed exactly where I was. And the silence that followed? It said everything. Alec didn't smile. Didn't tease. He just looked at me. And this time, there was something heavier in his expression. Something certain. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what I thought. My heart was beating way too fast now. Because the truth was out there. Fully. No more pretending. No more guessing. And the space between us? It felt like it was hanging by a thread. one small movement away from disappearing completely. I could feel his arm against mine. Steady. Warm. And neither of us moved. Not away. Not yet. But something was about to give. I could feel it. That thread finally snapped the second he moved. Not away. Closer. It wasn't sudden. Not some dramatic shift where he just closed the distance all at once. It was slower than that, controlled, deliberate. Like he was giving me time to react. Time to stop him. I didn't. I felt his arm press more firmly against mine, his shoulder turning slightly toward me. The space between us, what little was left of it, basically disappeared. My chest was tight. Not panic. Something else. Something heavier. "You're not even gonna argue anymore?" Alec asked quietly. I let out a breath that felt like I'd been holding it for too long. "What's the point?" A slight tilt of his head. "So you agree with me now?" I glanced at him. Big mistake. Because he was already right there. Closer than he'd ever been. Close enough that I could actually feel his presence in a way that went beyond just sitting next to someone. It was in the way his eyes stayed locked on mine, in the way his breathing had slowed like he was completely focused. "I didn't say that," I muttered. "You didn't have to," he replied, echoing himself from earlier. That shouldn't have gotten to me. But it did. Because now it wasn't just tension anymore. It was expectation. Like we were both standing at the edge of something, waiting to see who'd move first. I swallowed, my voice coming out quieter. "You're really sure about this, huh?" Alec didn't hesitate. "Yeah." No second guessing. No uncertainty. Just that same steady confidence that had been building in him for days now. It grounded something in me. Or maybe it pushed something loose. I wasn't sure which. "Why?" I asked. That made him pause. Not long. Just enough to feel real. Then, "Because I don't look at people like this," he said. "Not unless I mean it." That landed deeper than anything else he'd said so far. Because it wasn't teasing. Wasn't pushing. It was honest. And I felt that. Right in my chest. I looked away for a second, trying to get my head straight, but it didn't help. If anything, it made me more aware of everything else. How close he was. How either of us had moved. How easy it would be to just. "Jackson." My name again. Softer this time. I looked back. And yeah. He was even closer now. I didn't even notice when it happened. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't stop it. "You're still here," he said quietly. A stupid thing to say. But I knew what he meant. I huffed a small breath. "Yeah. I am." "Why?" That question hit harder than all the others. Because this time, I didn't have anything to hide behind. No jokes. No deflection. Just the truth sitting right there between us. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my chest, everywhere. "Because I don't want to move," I said finally. There it was. Out. Clear. Alec's expression shifted, subtle, but I caught it. Something softer. Something relieved. He lifted his hand. Slow. Careful. Like he was still giving me one last chance to pull back. It hovered for half a second, then rested lightly against my arm. Bare skin this time. Not just brushing. Not accidental. Intentional. My breath caught. The contact wasn't anything crazy. Just his hand against my arm. But it felt like way more than it should have. Like everything we'd been building up to had finally found somewhere to land. I didn't pull away. Didn't even think about it. I just stayed there. Let it happen. Alec's thumb shifted slightly, barely moving against my skin. And that small motion? It sent a sharp, immediate reaction through me that I couldn't ignore. "Still think I'm reading into it?" he asked quietly. I let out a breath, shaking my head just a little. "No." "Yeah," he murmured. Silence settled again. It wasn't tense. It wasn't uncertain. It felt decided. Like we'd crossed whatever line had been holding us back. And neither of us was pretending otherwise anymore. My eyes flicked down, just for a second, to where his hand was still resting against my arm. Then back up. And I caught it again. That same look. Only now, there was nothing held back in it. "You're still looking," I said quietly. Alec didn't even try to deny it. "Yeah," he said. My chest tightened. But not in a bad way. Not anymore. "Then stop," I muttered. "Make me." That did it. Something in me snapped into place. Or maybe it finally gave in. I didn't think about it. Didn't overanalyze. Didn't hesitate. I just leaned in, closing the distance that had been barely there to begin with. And the second I did, Alec didn't pull back. Not even a little. The moment didn't explode. It didn't turn into something wild or out of control like you'd expect after all that tension. It slowed down. Like everything narrowed to just the space between us. I barely moved, just enough to close that last inch. And even then, I hesitated for a second, right there, like my brain was giving me one final out. Alec didn't take it. He stayed exactly where he was. Steady. Waiting. And that somehow made it easier. My hand came up without me really thinking about it, resting lightly against his shoulder, not pulling him in, not pushing him away. Just there. Grounding. "Still want me to stop?" I asked quietly. Alec's eyes flicked between mine for a second. Then down. Then back up. "No," he said. That was it. No hesitation. No second guessing. Just that one word. And that was all it took. I closed the distance. The first contact was soft. Careful. Like neither of us was trying to rush it. It wasn't messy or desperate like I'd imagined it might be after everything that had built up. It was intentional. Slow enough that I could actually feel it happening, instead of getting lost in it. For a second, either of us moved. Just stayed there. Like we were both making sure it was real. Then Alec shifted slightly, his hand tightening just a little where it still rested on my arm, and that small movement sent something through me that made it impossible to stay still. I leaned in a bit more. And he met me halfway. That's when it changed. Still not rushed. But no longer hesitant either. There was something more certain in the way he moved now, like whatever line we'd been circling for days had finally disappeared. My grip on his shoulder tightened slightly without me meaning to, and I felt the way he responded to that, subtle, but there. Present. Real. When we finally pulled back, it wasn't far. Just enough to look at each other again. And yeah, that look was still there. Stronger now. Clearer. "You gonna tell me I was wrong?" Alec asked, voice low. I let out a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. "No," I admitted. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, not cocky, not teasing. Just satisfied. "Good," he said. I huffed softly, dropping my hand from his shoulder but not moving away otherwise. "You're annoyingly confident, you know that?" "Wasn't always," he replied. That caught my attention. "What changed?" His eyes stayed on mine. "You did." That hit harder than I expected. I didn't even have a response for that right away. Because part of me knew what he meant. This whole thing, these looks, the tension, the way either of us backed off, it wasn't just him pushing. I'd been meeting him there the whole time. Even when I pretended I wasn't. "Yeah," I said finally, quieter now. "I guess I did." Silence settled again. But this time, it felt different. Not heavy. Not uncertain. Just calm. Like whatever this was, we didn't have to question it anymore. Alec's hand was still resting lightly against my arm, not gripping, not pulling, just there. And I didn't move it. Didn't move away either. "So," I said after a moment, glancing at him. "What now?" He leaned back slightly, but not far. Still close enough that the space between us felt intentional. "Now?" he repeated. Yeah. We stopped pretending this is nothing. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. I think we already passed that point. Alec huffed a quiet laugh. Yeah, he agreed. Another pause. Then, more quietly. You good with this? That question mattered. More than everything else he'd said. Because now it wasn't about tension or guessing or pushing boundaries. It was real. And it needed to be mutual. I looked at him, really looked this time. At the way he was still steady, still giving me space to answer honestly. And the truth? I said. No hesitation. Alec nodded once. Like that was all he needed. And for the first time since this whole thing started, everything felt settled. Not finished. Not resolved. But clear. Like whatever this was between us, it wasn't something we had to chase anymore. It was already here. The weirdest part? Things didn't get awkward after. That's what I expected. Honestly, I thought the second we crossed that line, everything would shift in this messy, complicated way we wouldn't know how to deal with. But it didn't. Not like that. If anything, it felt easier. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm again. Same as the last few days. But this time, my head wasn't spinning. It was quiet. Clear. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night before, but it didn't feel confusing anymore. It felt settled. Like something finally made sense. When I walked into the kitchen, Alec was already there. Of course. Some things don't change. Morning, he said, glancing up. And yeah. He was still looking at me. But now, it didn't feel like something I had to figure out. It just was. Morning, I replied, grabbing a mug. No tension. No weird silence. Just the same space we'd always shared. Only now it felt more honest. I leaned against the counter, taking a sip of coffee, and caught him watching me again. I didn't call it out this time. Didn't need to. Instead, I just looked back. Held it. And for a second, there was this quiet understanding between us that hadn't been there before. You're still doing it, I said finally, but there was no edge to it anymore. Alec smirked slightly. Told you I wasn't gonna stop. I huffed a small laugh, shaking my head. Yeah. I remember. You mind? He asked. That caught me off guard. Not the question itself. Just the way he asked it. Like he actually cared about the answer. I looked at him for a second. Really thought about it. Because now, it wasn't about tension or curiosity or figuring things out anymore. It was about choice. And the answer came easier than I expected. No, I said. I don't. Alec nodded once. Simple. But it meant something. We fell into a quiet rhythm after that. Not avoiding each other. Not overthinking every interaction. Just existing in the same space, but without that layer of uncertainty hanging over everything. Later that night, we ended up back on the couch again. Same spot. Same setup. But this time, there was no pretending. No careful distance. I sat down next to him, close enough that our sides brushed immediately. And neither of us adjusted. The TV played in the background, something neither of us was really paying attention to. After a minute, I felt it again. His eyes. I turned my head slightly. Still looking? I asked. Alec didn't even try to hide it. Yeah. I exhaled quietly, a small smile pulling at my lips. Good, I said. That got his attention. Good? He repeated. I glanced at him, holding his gaze this time. Yeah, I said. Because I notice now. I noticed before too, I added. That made something shift in his expression. Softer. Less guarded. Yeah? He asked. Yeah. A small pause. Then I leaned back slightly, letting my shoulder rest more fully against him. Not hesitant. Not unsure. Just choosing it. I just didn't say anything. I finished. Alec let out a quiet breath, like something had finally clicked into place. Guess I made up for that, he said. I smirked. You think? Yeah, he replied, just as easily. Silence settled again. Comfortable this time. Real. And after a while, without really thinking about it, I leaned in. Not testing. Not questioning. Just natural. Alec didn't hesitate. Didn't pause. He just met me there. Like he had been waiting for me to stop overthinking it all along. When we pulled back, it wasn't far. Just enough to breathe. To look at each other. And yeah, he was still looking at me. Only now, it didn't feel like something hidden. Or something I had to catch when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Now, it was something we both knew. Something we didn't have to question anymore. I huffed a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. What? Alec asked. Nothing, I said, a small smile still there. Just funny. What is? I looked at him. Honestly this time. That I noticed you looking at me when you thought I wasn't paying attention. Alec's lips curved slightly. And now? I paused, glancing at him again.